Hi, and welcome to Kenshoo's Intersections webinar. The topic today is activating search and social synergy. I'm Nate Young, Director of Demand Generation at Kenshoo, and I'm excited that you could join us today. During the webinar, please use the hashtag KenshooIntersections to share your thoughts and on the synergies between search and social. We have a lot of great content today and likely won't have time for open Q&A. But please enter any questions or comments in the question box, and we'll reply during the webinar or follow up after the conclusion of the presentation. At Kenshoo, the topic of search and social is near and dear to our hearts. We're proud to be named the only leader by Forrester Research in their evaluations of search bid management software and social ad platforms. You can be sure the content we'll be delivering today comes from a strong vantage point. I'd like to introduce you to Aaron Goldman and Will Martin-Gill. They'll be taking you through the presentation today. Aaron, I'll hand it off to you to get us started.
Great, thanks Nate, and thank you all for joining us. As Nate mentioned, we have a lot of great content to share with you today, and we're excited to dig in. Definitely feel free to tweet along with us, hashtag KenshooIntersections. We'll be monitoring that, and then also feel free to submit questions through the chat box, as Nate mentioned. If we have time at the end, we will address them. Our agenda has us starting with a quick view at cross-channel marketing, and then we'll talk about the push and pull dynamic that is bespoke to some of the key channels within online marketing. We'll make the case for why search and social are the best place to start with your cross-channel synergy exploration. We'll talk about some of the similarities and differences between the channels, and then give you some practical steps in terms of how you can get started. And then finally, we'll share some examples of search and social activation, how you can really unlock the full value of these channels through specific tools and strategies. And then lastly, of course, we'll give you a little bit of a pitch for why Kenshoo is positioned to help you fully activate that synergy and drive results for your business. So without further ado, let's talk about this word synergy. Our topic is activating search and social synergy. And synergy is a buzzword that tends to get overused within our industry, but at its core is a really important concept. And as defined, it's the interaction or cooperation of two or more organizations, substances, I guess that part's probably not terribly relevant to our industry, or other agents to produce a combined effect that's greater than the sum of their separate effects. And that's really what we're talking about. It's this equation here of 1 + 1 = 3. And if we're doing it right, when you take each of your individual channels and start to manage them in a holistic manner, then you should be seeing results that are better than you could have achieved with each of the individual parts managed separately. So let's drill in a little bit and see what is it about cross-channel marketing. What are the benefits that marketers are looking for when bringing these things together? The first is certainly creating more efficiency within their marketing operations. So creating better workflow between their teams, their tools, and finding ways to save time and do more. The second is around performance, delivering better ROI. Sorry, these slides are getting ahead of me here. How can you deliver better ROI in your marketing campaigns through cross-channel marketing is it's marketing that is leading them along along that path. Key challenges to marketing integration, and you can see having to work with multiple vendors, agency specialists can bring additional when trying to integrate across channels, not having the expertise, and then of course all the above. And then the 13% of the marketers who have no challenges and learn what you're doing, because you should be here talking instead of me, but my guess is individual challenges. And so we'd like to get a sense for that, and we're going to go to a poll here and ask you to submit through the GoToWebinar viewer on the side your answer to this question. Which of these challenges to cross-channel operationalization, say that 10 times fast, I'll try, maybe I'll try while you guys are answering the poll. Which of these worries you the most? What keeps you up at night? Is it aligning your org structure involved, or is it just having the expertise? Operationalization, operationalization, operationalization. I said it 10 times fast. Whew. Hopefully that gave you guys enough time to answer. We'll give you 2 more seconds here. Please lock in your vote. What's keeping you up at night? And let's go ahead and see the answers. Org structure, challenge to getting your cross-channel marketing in sync and execute. And hopefully we can help you along there. And we'll look to speak to some of the other ways you can think about setting up your org, implementing technology, and working with partners to help you unlock the full value. So thanks for participating, and let's keep moving along. The potent relationship of push and pull marketing. This is something that we hear a lot from advertisers and marketers when they're thinking about how they approach their marketing and looking at the characteristics of different channels. You have your pull marketing channels, which are typically coupled to content that people are actively requesting. So think about a search engine results page, location listings. These tend to be pull marketing channels where the consumers are actively pulling information from brands and looking for specific products, services, etc. Push marketing is typically used to describe channels that are where marketing messaging is shown to people as they're passively consuming content and engaging with assets. So classic examples would be display advertising, where the message is more passively shown. People haven't actively asked for it like they have with a search query. And of course, we'll talk more about how these different opportunities can come together to drive full marketing experience. And the key, of course, is to strike the right balance, right? It's not push or pull. And how can you do that at scale, right? It's key to be able to leverage both push and pull channels and do it at a scale that can help you meet your goals, but not in a templated way through cross-channel marketing. Consumer path that was tracked through the Kenshoo platform for one of our retail clients. And you can see the interplay between the channels. It started with an ad on a social network. And was also a social ad, and it was part of that same campaign here. 2 days later, we saw a click on the keyword, how to install speakers, right? So it's indicative of somebody who's now taking it one step further, trying to make sure they have all the pieces that they're going to need. A couple minutes later, they refined their query to in-wall speakers, and there was a click on that ad. The next day, so you can see again someone putting together all the pieces of their home theater system. An hour after that, this person, as we talked about, this person isn't thinking about interacting with advertising. Watch the work attendees from all over that consumer. We're able to create a cohesive brand experience and push them along to that path of purchase. And we'll talk a little bit later about how we think about attribution across each of these touch points to reward each ad for its specific contribution to this conversion. So let's take a moment and talk about search and social and why these should be the next channels that you focus on integrating. The first is surely the time spent. Over 40% of all time spent online is done searching or socializing. So it's clearly what people are engaging with online, and therefore a great opportunity to focus on these two channels to bring together from a marketing standpoint. The second point is trust. Consumers trust search and social. Almost 2/3 of all respondents to the survey trust online search engines for their news and information, and almost half trust social media. The third thing to keep in mind is advertising budgets. And we're going to ask you how you think about this for your organization in just a minute. But looking overall at ad spend, we see that more than half of digital ad budgets go to search and social. So if you're going to pick two channels to focus on integrating, it would make sense to go where the lion's share of your budget is currently being spent. And today, that's with search and social. And furthermore, it's projected to only continue to grow. And we'll show some of our stats around that in a minute. But before we do that, we want to get a sense for the folks attending the webinar today. What percentage of your digital marketing budget is currently going to search and social? And we're going to give you 4 options. Less than 10%, 11 to 35%, 36 to 66%, and over 66%. So take a moment, do some mental math, and add up your search spend and your social spend, and then divide that by your total digital marketing spend. And tell us what that percentage is. We'll be really keen to see what the folks attending this webinar are currently allocating to these two channels, and if it matches up to some of the stats that we just showed. And then following this poll, we'll show you what we're seeing across the Kenshoo platform in terms of growth within each of these channels. So again, take a moment and answer the poll for us. Let us know what percentage of your digital spend is currently represented by the two channels of search and social. And let's lock in your answers, and let's see the results. So it looks like our sample here is pretty close to what we saw in the aggregate. About half of you, over half of you, are currently spending more than 36% of your budgets on search and social. The leading selection here is between 36 and 66%. We've got 30% of you spending between 11% and 35%. About one-tenth of the folks on the line here allocate less than 10% of their budgets to search and social, and more than 2/3, 1/4 of you allocate more than 2/3 of your budget to search and social. So clearly the folks that are with us here today understand the power of search and social, are investing heavily in it. So hopefully through the rest of our presentation here, we can give you some good thoughts on how to get the most out of that spend. So thanks for participating, and we'll keep moving along. Here's some data that we recently put out, analyzing Q1 performance across a base of Kenshoo clients that have been using the platform actively for at least 5 quarters so that we could get some good year-over-year benchmarks. And what you see is really healthy growth for both search and social. Year-over-year, social ad spend is growing at 37%, and advertiser revenue, so that's the revenue that we track that comes as a result of social ads, direct revenue, is up 191%. So it really shows that people are able to drive direct response results from their social advertising. On the search side, ad spend in Q1 was up 10% year over year, and the revenue that came from that was up 12%. So still nice, healthy double-digit growth. Of course, search in itself is a much larger channel in terms of spend, so it makes sense that these growth numbers would be a little smaller because it's a bigger number that we're trying to move. But you can see strong growth between the two channels, and most importantly, the growth in revenue is outpacing the growth in spend, which means that ROI is increasing for both these channels. Of course, there's some seasonality in play between the fourth quarter and the first quarter. The fourth quarter tends to be a heavy spend quarter, what with the different holidays during that period and other shopping events that tend to have people ramping up their programs. But year over year, we see both of these channels continue to grow, and of course, that's why the imperative is for us to connect and amplify the synergy. For many years now, research has been put out on the market that shows that search and social work better together. Group M was one of the first in the market to put together some of this research. This was from 2009, and they found that consumers that were exposed to a brand's influence, social, and search programs were almost 3 times more likely to search for that brand's products. And when they did search, the click-through rate was 50% higher. All right, so a few years now, we've been actively seeing and measuring these effects. Recently, Kenshoo did a study that affirmed some of these results, and what we found was that for a paired market study for a retailer, we found that Facebook ads improved paid search campaign performance. So just looking at the search campaign by itself, the return on ad spend was 30% higher when this particular advertiser was also running Facebook ads. The paid search average order value was 24% higher when the ads were being run concurrently with Facebook ads, and the click-through rate was 7% higher. All right, and the CPA, 4.5% lower. So all metrics, all search metrics improve when Facebook ads are running concurrently. So you can see that cross-channel effect, and importantly, we showed some of those search growth trends, and if you can continue to get, if you can find a way to get 30% better ROI from your paid search, which is probably already one of your strongest performing channels, then it could be a pretty great opportunity for you in terms of bottom line, whether it's revenue, whether it's profit, whether it's traffic, whatever your end metric or goal is. Having both of these programs running together can make a big difference. So let's talk a little bit about how search and social complement each other. Like peanut butter and jelly, better together. Although in my house, it's actually peanut butter and honey is what we're enjoying these days. The kids won't touch the jelly, so we do the peanut butter and honey. But same point here, they go well together, and let's talk about how that manifests itself from a search and social perspective. And a reminder as we go to feel free to send any questions through the chat box. If we have time at the end, we'll answer them, and tweet along with us at #KenshooIntersections. So let's talk about the similarities between search and social from an advertising perspective. The first is that both of them provide self-serve, auction-based PPC models. The second is that they require taking a very granular approach, whether it's by keywords in search or by audience targets in social. The key to success is creating a very granular program to then be able to deliver relevant messaging. The targeting options are also very rich between the two channels. You can target by any number of factors, from time of day, day of week, geography, device type, etc. Another component is the real-time optimization. Unlike other channels that are sort of done on a reserved basis through insertion orders or other upfront planning, search and social, it's all about real-time optimization. Every minute of every day, changing bids, calibrating your programs as an important fundamental aspect of both search and social. And then lastly is the scale in mobile. Facebook released its earnings yesterday, and I think it was something like 57% of their ad revenue is now coming from mobile. We see similar trends in search, where more and more search activity and advertising engagement is happening on mobile devices. So search and social definitely offer you scale from a mobile perspective. Now let's talk about how these channels are a little bit different and how that helps us actually even more unlock synergy between the two. We talked earlier about the push and pull aspects of search and social, right, where social is more of pushing your message out to targeted audiences, and search is pulling people in by seeing what they're asking for through their search queries. The ad formats, of course, are different between search and social. Search is primarily a text-based ad placement. Of course, there's product listing ads and other opportunities to bring some images in, but the majority of the scale in search certainly comes through a text format. Whereas with social, you have more opportunities to get more rich advertising units. And then the targeting options, while we talked about some of them being the same, there's also some that are very different. In search, of course, you can target by keyword, what people are actually searching. In social, there's many things available in terms of targeting by likes and interests, who people are connected to on various social networks, what brands they may be following on Twitter, for example. And so in that case, there's very different options. And then the post-view tracking is certainly an important component. Third-party ad serving is available via social. On search, it's a little more, well, you just don't have the same opportunities to serve your ads and be able to fully track the ad views and some of the post-impression activity. So that's why having both of these channels together really rounds out your overall opportunity and gives you a rich approach. Do you like peanut butter and jelly or peanut butter and honey? And do you like them all in the same jar or separate jars? We'll get back to you at the end of the webinar with your very important answers to that burning question that I know is keeping everybody up at night in the marketing world. So at the end of the day, when thinking about search and social, how do you unlock that synergy? It's all about signals. It's about harnessing data signals from each channel to inform and optimize the other. And there's three components of that. There's collecting these signals, analyzing these signals, and then activating, taking action on these signals to improve your program. And we're going to spend a few minutes talking about that. Here are some examples of search signals that can be used for social. Search queries. What people are looking for can be a great indicator of how to target and optimize on social in terms of what people are interested in related to your brand. And speaking of your brand, when people actually search with your brand name in it, that can be an indicator of your awareness and how much you need to either improve your consideration out there in the market, potentially through social or not. The mobile search data that comes from the search channel can, of course, be a great signal, understanding where people are searching for you. If it's from their mobile device, whether out and about or at home at their desktop, can help you better understand how to think about targeting your ads from a social perspective. The ad copy you're using, if there's certain calls to action or promotions that are working really well in search, you might want to take those and apply them to social. Your metrics and KPIs, whether it be CPA, ROI, CPC, all of these are important signals that can help you understand how one channel can lead to success in the other. And then retargeting, finding what people are searching for and then reaching them again when they're on a social network. And Will's going to talk a little bit more about that in his part of the presentation. Here are some examples of social signals that can be used for search. Likes and interests. What people are interested in can be a great barometer for new keyword opportunities for you to buy. Social activity. So what people are actually tweeting or retweeting or liking can be great barometers for additional expansion within search. Social analytics. Another great opportunity to mine your data and take some signals from social to search. And then testing audience response. Social can be a great real-time focus group. Test different offers, test different creatives, and then use those and either create more compelling search landing pages or ad creative. So some quick thought starters on how to get started. The first thing that's really important is rallying internal stakeholders. We talked about earlier, one of the challenges that many folks are facing is just within their own organization. You may have different silos, different teams responsible for different channels. So how do you rally those stakeholders? Well, the first way is to find your cross-channel champion. Find that person or that team within the org that gets the opportunity and has the ability, whether it's through analytics, IT, or other functions, to be able to unlock that cross-channel idea and be a champion with you as you take this through the organization. Then start seeding the idea, letting people know that this is something that you're going to be focusing on, why it's important. Set long-term goals, but do it with short-term objectives. Right? Everybody knows that the panacea is true on the channel marketing, but show some short-term wins along the way that if you can reach those milestones, you'll be well on your way. That way you're not in a case of having to make over-promising claims. And then, of course, clearly demonstrate the upside of doing it well and the downsides of not doing it. There's nothing that's going to rally people quicker than showing an example of where one hand didn't know what the other was doing and there was a mixed message in market or potentially a full-on broken piece of communication. The second tip is to prove the concept. Right? So after shopping internally, finding your champions, see what, after you found what resonates with them, and build on those insights. What are the pain points that are keeping people from doing this better, and see how cross-channel initiatives can help solve that. Show what competitors are doing and maybe use that as a way to make your case. And then we talked about finding short-term wins, help you put points on the board and show, hey, this stuff is actually working and making a difference. And then it's important, too, to seek out tech solutions. Make sure that you're putting cross-channel at the top of all of your evaluations to understand how the different technology platforms that you're using address these opportunities. And find out what's already in place within your own internal tech stack that you can leverage, and ask that of third parties as well, and find out what's on the roadmap, what's coming ahead that will help with some of the opportunities that exist between cross-channel marketing. Over to you.
All right, great. Thanks, Aaron. So we're going to spend the next part of the presentation talking about some of the ways that Kenshoo is using technology to help advertisers bring search and social together and really take them to the next level. Now, we'll be humble and say that and admit that we're not here having all the answers, but we're hoping to give you at least some food for thought as to some of the ways that advertisers are using technology to overcome some of the organizational and cross-channel expertise challenges that you identified as some of the biggest challenges in the poll that you took at the beginning of this session. And so let's talk here and see if I can advance this slide. All right, so the words marketing stack and all-in-one platform get thrown a lot in our industry. And I think when a lot of people say it, what they really mean is that they're aspiring to bring data together in one place, allow you to see how the different channels are performing, start to look at things like ROI and make decisions, etc. We do that too, but our focus, especially in the last 12 to 18 months, has been to make the data actionable. And we aspire to do much more than just show you data side by side. Our focus has been on using the data and success and insights in one channel and help you make the other one better. And we do that through a number of different technologies, from our bidding systems, using and understanding those insights to be better and updating the models that they use on a daily and weekly basis, to using that to help inform creatives. And we're going to talk about some of these here in the next few minutes. So one of these examples is demand-driven campaigns. We announced this capability last fall, and to summarize it, it's basically an easy way to take your best performing product ads in search and turn them into social campaigns. Now, as a strategic preferred marketing developer with Facebook, we have invested a lot on the social side, and noticed that Facebook campaigns based on products were some of the best for advertisers out there. Now, the most challenging part, though, is to set them up and to keep them up to date. And so what we did was develop a system that helps you take some of your best performing search product ads and turn them into successful campaigns. Essentially, within a few clicks, you can look at the performance. You can take those ads and put them and port over creatives, port over images, and very quickly get ready-made campaigns launched in Facebook. Now, the advantages of doing it this way, obviously the ease of being able to set these up, but also because we're using the data of how those products are performing in search, from a click-through rate, from an ROI, et cetera, you can get pretty sophisticated about picking the best products that you know are going to have some pretty good returns in on the social side. And you can also keep them updated, so you can come back and update those campaigns and make sure that as products change and you find success with different parts of your inventory, those get reflected in your campaigns, and those are kept up to date as well. So just to give you an example of one of our many advertisers that has taken advantage of this capability, we're working with the eBay Enterprise group, who manages and works with Alex Anani, and they have done some great work with them in using demand-driven campaigns to really increase the performance of the platform. They found that it's these product campaigns that have become some of the best performing in their in their campaigns, and so you've seen some pretty impressive numbers in terms of lift in ROI, revenue, and basically metrics across the board. Of course, because they are doing this in a pretty easy way, it's also saving a lot of time, and it's helping them keep updated over time. Now, we should also note that this capability is not just applicable to retailers, but really any advertiser with a feed of products to sell. So we are working with folks in other verticals beyond e-commerce and retail, in travel, and in a number of others, and can use feeds directly as well to set the and to you. And you want to go ahead and target those people in other channels that you're in. Now, we're not the first ones to come up with a concept. I mean, the concept of search retargeting has been around for at least 4 or 5 years. But until now, a lot of advertisers have had to rely on second and third tier engines and other third-party platforms out there to try to find ways to segment customers through search signals, and then make those audiences available to advertisers. Folks have not had a way to use their own data to really dig down and optimize the way that they find these customers and target these customers. And so that is what we've built. And the first way that we brought that to life is by actually building the capabilities to buy on Facebook Exchange. And we launched that last year. We actually have a number of advertisers using that today, and it has allowed us to do a few different things. What's interesting is that it's not just about retargeting certain people because they've searched for something that you think is interesting. It's also that we can port the data and then have capabilities to get smarter about other things that we do for those folks. So for example, our real-time bidding engine in Facebook Exchange is using actual search data to figure out how much to bid for a user. So yes, the fact that somebody searched for tennis racket might make them relevant for a particular campaign that you're running, but the fact that the keyword tennis racket actually has a conversion rate and an average order value that are attractive to you starts to give you a lot more information, especially at scale, than what you'd be able to do on your own. And so what we found is some pretty nice improvements in efficiency and ROI as we've built those insights into what exactly we're paying and bidding for those audiences. Now, in addition, we've come up with ways to use those cross-channel signals to improve your creative selection and update. Let's see if we can advance one slide. So one of these ways is to improve the way that you're actually and what ad you're actually showing and having it inform real time by a number of factors. And that includes search data. And what we've actually found is that by using this kind of dynamic creative on Facebook Exchange, we've actually made some very nice progress with our advertisers in terms of click-through rate, conversion rate, and all of those translated into an almost 2x return on investment. So we'll leave you with two last slides in this section that can show you the extent of the opportunity in retargeting and remarketing to some of these. The first is actual data from an advertiser that represents, let me explain the pie chart on the left. So for this particular advertiser, they had identified a number of customers that were relevant to them because they had searched for search terms that for them were very valuable. Now, this advertiser happened to be doing both search and social, but without tying the two pieces of data and the two channels together, on the social side, they were only showing them advertisements about 1/8 of the potential times that they could have been messaging and promoting their message to them. And that was identified as a big miss, big opportunity. These are customers that this particular advertiser was paying a very high CPC rate for, and they were convinced that if they had an opportunity to go ahead and show them additional messages, they would have an increased conversion rate. And in fact, that's exactly what they did. By connecting these two channels together and using the data we've been talking about, they were able to address the other 7/8 of this pie and not only reach them through search, but use social as a way to expand the message and overall increase the ROI. Now, if you break this down by categories for this particular advertiser, the opportunity was pretty uniform across the board. And so again, with their traditional social campaigns before we started working with them, this particular advertiser was reaching these very, very relevant users only a fraction of the times represented in green, and was leaving all the opportunity in blue on the table to go and expand their message and to get more aggressive about converting those customers. So those are some pretty concrete examples of how we're starting to bring together the search and social in ways that are really increasing ROIs for our customers. Now we'll spend the last bit of our webinar here talking about why Kenshoo and how can we help in technology. And one of the first areas here to call out is just our commitment in an industry that changes as much as online advertising does to innovation. We invest a disproportionate amount in innovation. About half of the people at Kenshoo are dedicated to either technology product or the folks that are supporting the platform. And compared to other companies in the SaaS space, we invest a disproportionate amount in making sure that our advertisers are ahead of the game when it comes to the techniques that they use to reach their customers. Now, we've talked a lot in this webinar about also making sure that we're focused on making your data not just easy to understand, but actionable. And hopefully the examples that we just walked through have served to show you that we believe there are a lot of opportunities to use the signals that you're getting from your text ads, from PLAs, from your inventory feeds, from what customers are doing on your website to help improve social and vice versa. And the examples and the technologies that we've launched to date are only a small fraction of what we think are the opportunities in the space. And so stay tuned, because you're going to see more from us this year, and we think there are some very interesting additional ways to bring these two technologies together. And so, you know, if you bring this all together, we are trying to go beyond measurement of your channels to really get to insights and action. And so our advertisers and Forrester recognize us for having some of the best bidding tools in the industry. But to us, it's much more than that, and it's about going beyond that. And so we have invested significantly in things like helping you understand the path to conversion that your customers are going through, and beyond that, to give you better tools to do forecasting and budget management. So for example, we won't go deep on it today, but our new halogen technology helps you understand your potential returns and your optimal spend allocation between portfolios up to 90 days ahead of where you are. So by combining all of these capabilities together and all these data and insights together, we're helping advertisers become even more strategic and more efficient in how they're running their digital marketing. Now, one area that we haven't spent as much time talking about is attribution. So one of the key things that we hear all the time is that it's all great to be advertising in multiple channels, but the biggest challenge of all is to figure out who gets the credit. At the end of the day, if a user comes in through multiple channels and is exposed to multiple ads, who gets the credit? And how do you make sure that the right channels are properly credited and properly invested in? And so we've been investing a lot in native technologies that help you solve that problem. And we recognize the fact that although the industry has wanted to move beyond the last click model, and it's been a huge topic of conversation in the last 4 or 5 years in every digital marketing conference that I've ever been to, the options that folks have had to be able to do this have been pretty limited. And so we, as an industry, started to see some of the rules-based models where you could start to specify, you know, give all the credit to the first touch point or the last touch point, or linearly attribute the credit. But what was clear to us is that none of those models do a great job of actually understanding in any given and specific purchase path what role did each of the different touch points have in that ultimate conversion. And so we invested in a system that dynamically starts to understand those customer interactions, understand the marginal value that each individual interaction has. So would that purchase have happened were it not for the efforts or impact of that individual ad placement? And then use an algorithm to assign value and then bid to true value and really turn the insights and the data into action. So how that then translates is a system that basically takes all those interactions and all those touch points and is in an updated basis identifying the role that each of the touch points has in that ultimate conversion. And what we found, first of all, is that for many advertisers, there is the multi-click purchase path is a pretty common occurrence, and they are today not attributing the right way to these different channels. And so we've been investing in ways to make that a little bit more clear. So, you know, one of the questions we get asked is, hey, okay, but there's a number of solutions out there that say that they do the same thing. And what makes you guys any different than other dynamic attribution solutions? And the way I typically answer that is that while other solutions out there have focused a lot on helping you understand different channels and how they should be invested in and what the true ROI for those channels is, we came and approached it from a bottoms-up perspective. Our ultimate objective was less, at least at the beginning, to come up with that insight at a top-down level, and more to understand how can we appropriately attribute the value so that we really, when it comes time to bidding on things like keywords or ad placements on Facebook, use the best data to make the best decisions. And so, for example, within search, we started to really understand the role of brand terms versus non-brand terms in a purchase path, of head terms versus tail terms in a purchase path, and really built the most granular models, again, to feed the bidding engines to make them smarter. Now, if you add all of those up, you can certainly also come up with a conclusion about what the true ROI of an entire channel is. And we can do that not just for search and social, but by now we've actually built the capability of properly attributing across all the channels that you have. And we're working with a number of advertisers that not only are managing these two channels with us, but that have a number of other channels that are plugging into our system. And so, you know, if I explain all level, how much more investment individual keywords or individual ad placements can take, and as a result, gets a lot more, we think, right, the different allocation and the different insights as to how to invest. So together, SmartPath, our attribution solution, makes each of the channels work better, and we've seen some pretty nice returns from the returns were going up. So to wrap this up, I'll just talk a little bit more generally about Kenshoo, and then hand it back over to Aaron here in a little bit. Again, it's always nice to say nice things about yourself, but it's even nicer when other people say nice things about you. And we were honored to be named by Forrester as a leader in both search and social, the only leader in both. And one of the stats in those studies that we're most proud of is that there's a pretty thorough asking of our customer references of how they work with Kenshoo and what they think of Kenshoo, and we received some of the highest marks on that particular metric. So we're very invested in working with each and every one of you to help understand how the specific technology that we have can help you in your specific situation get better. And now, you know, our philosophy is that with over 1,000 companies in the advertising tech space and an ecosystem, many of the most forward-thinking advertisers want to work with best-in-class platforms out there. And so Kenshoo's strategy is really to help you do that. We have invested in industry-leading platforms in channel management and bidding, but we realized that that is not enough. And so we've invested in other native technologies that in other parts of the ecosystem are helping our advertisers better manage digital advertising. And so our aspiration is to work with our advertisers on not just great channel management, but bring together these channels in ways that really make them more efficient and that really increase the returns that they get for their investments. And for everything else, we want to be a great partner and help, through an open architecture, bring together all of the different platforms that you may be using that as we port data into Kenshoo and export data out of Kenshoo can really perform well for you. So with that, I'll just say that with flexibility and a direct line of sight between investment and revenue and user acquisition, CEOs and GMs of businesses are increasingly realizing that digital marketing can become one of the most important groups within their companies. And we tend to specialize and work with a lot of sophisticated advertisers and very forward-thinking advertisers. And in a number of them, CEOs are getting regular updates on digital marketing, on search and social specifically, and either digital marketing gets invited into weekly operational meetings for the business, or there's a separate review where they're going a little bit deeper into that. And so as a result, we have a lot of tools that help automate what digital marketing teams are doing, but really it's about giving you the tools and capabilities to be even more strategic to your business, to answer the types of questions that you get. Hey, if we put an additional amount of money into digital marketing, what can we get out of it over the next 4 weeks, out of the next 8 weeks? And start to bring all of the different activities that you're doing across the different channels in smarter ways, not just to increase ROI, but also to control the end-to-end user experience that you're providing to your customer, and make sure that they're possible and are as coordinated as possible for excellent results to advertisers. So with that, I will thank you and pass it over to Aaron to bring us home.
Was both personal and dear to home when talking about how regular updates with the highest visibility to the top echelons of the organization are now coming out of these digital marketing organizations, because it's such a strategic lever that can be pushed and pulled to drive results. So thanks for your thoughts, Will, and thanks to all of you who joined. We've got a couple last minutes, so I'll address a few of the questions that came up, and I'll also point you to a couple key places where you can get some more resources to help you along your path to search and social synergy. One of those is a guide that we put together as part of the Kenshoo Guide series, and you can find that at kenshoo.com/search-and-social-guide. Not easy to say, but hopefully easy to type. We put the dashes in there more so to help you separate the words, but it doesn't really translate when I say it out loud. So check that out. It's a great document with a lot more detail on some of the concepts we talked about today. And then keep an eye on kenshoo.com/intersections. We're updating it regularly with new content. We've got experiments up there that you can apply to your own program. We've got a great Q&A series. We had Chris Copeland and Rob Garner participate in the last couple weeks, and we'll be posting some more. If you're interested in being a part of that series, please reach out. And then the stats I showed you earlier about Q1 performance are also available and linked from this page. Now, as to some of those questions that came in, most importantly was the poll that we wanted to take on whether people prefer peanut butter with jelly or peanut butter with ham. And it was ham, actually. All right, there's a new one. Peanut butter with honey was the H. Yes, honey. It was 50-50 split. Half of you like your peanut butter with honey, half of you like it with jelly. And then there was one last vote that came in, or we thought it was going to be a vote. We saw one more comment about it that we thought was going to break the tie, but it was somebody saying enough with the PB&J talk. So, all right, lesson learned, moving on. We had a question from Elaine about how social affects natural search, if at all. And while certainly the focus of our content here today was on the paid side, there are definitely cross-channel synergies to be had between search and social from a natural perspective, and that's both organic search as well as organic social content strategies. Beyond some of the basics, which are that each social post or piece of content or asset that you post via a social network gives you a chance to capture search real estate. Right? More and more of the search engines are indexing and promoting social content to come up on the SERP, so it's a great way to get more real estate. But also more of the search engines are starting to use social signals to help determine ranking. Google leverages Google Plus quite heavily to understand and rank various content, and certainly from a local perspective, if you have local businesses or physical locations being set up with your page through Google Plus is going to help you show up in maps and other types of results. So thanks, Elaine, for your question. We had a question from Sachin about if Kenshoo supports search and social, what about the gap for affiliate ad network channels? Actually, I think we'll probably address that in the second to last slide where we talked about the open architecture. There's the channels that can be managed through Kenshoo fully, and then all other channels we plug into via integration. So you can bring all that data into Kenshoo, and then we can do the tracking, measurement, and attribution to understand how everything's working together. So that's an important component. I think the takeaway here is we're talking about search and social as these two primary channels that offer great synergy. And starting with those and having those integrated from a full campaign management perspective can really give you a lift. But to Sachin's point, it's important to remember that they are just two channels in a larger marketing mix. So it's important to connect all those dots as well. Julie had a question about any specific suggestions for B2B only organizations. And there's certainly some specific components of what we talked about that apply to the B2B space. You're typically facing longer sales cycles. Perhaps your conversion event happens offline, so not all of the same types of tools you can activate, but the same approach applies in terms of having that messaging that's consistent across channels. So if it's a 9 to 12 month sales cycle and a lot of the research by the buyer is happening before they even contact you, you want to make sure you're visible, and you want to make sure that your message is tailored to the buyer persona and the stage in the buying process. And so the tools that we talked about to be able to tailor the message become important, as does the tracking and attribution. If it's a multi-step conversion process that completes offline, each step in that process should be tracked so that you can give the proper credit and weight to each interaction along the way, and then update your media mix allocation accordingly. So thanks for those questions. We got a few others, but don't have time to address them, so we'll be sure to follow up with you offline. By all means, continue to keep the conversation going with hashtag Kenshoo Intersections, and we'll keep the dialogue going there. Come back to kenshoo.com/intersections for more content, and feel free to reach out to Kenshoo at any time with your own thoughts on what you've done within your organization to activate that search and social synergy. We always like to hear from folks out there doing it well. We like to hear from folks out there not doing it well, and what some of the lessons that you may have learned that can be shared. So I'll thank you again for joining us today for the Kenshoo Intersections webinar, and we will see you on the interwebs. Have a great day, evening, or morning, depending on where in the world you are. Cheers.